What Bitemark offers, we do grand opening events. I've got 2 going on right now. I do a lot of community marketing, so I've got a health fair coming up with Discount Tire. One of my clients will be at that. A lot of events, a lot of different strategies that make a difference. They leave a mark. That's kind of my tagline, right?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tau, and I always thank my sponsors first and foremost, both Dental Intelligence and the doc sites, for their continued support. So please check them out and learn more about what they can do to help your dental practice. In terms of my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, we are in April. The event is literally 5 months away. So make sure that you go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com, and the early bird special should be ending very shortly. You can use the code RAVING, R-A-V-I-N-G, to save $100 on your registration. It's going to be an amazing event. It's at Pier 66 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, September 26th and 27th. So again, superchargeyourdentalpractice.com to learn more about this event. It's the 3rd year, and you do not want to miss it. Today's episode is called Beyond the Chair, Converting First-Time Patients into Raving Patients, something I'm very fond of, and I think it's going to be a great topic. Today's guest is Victoria Porter.
Hello, thank you.
Victoria, I'm going to read Victoria's bio before we jump in and learn more about her. So Victoria Porter is a powerhouse behind Bitemark Media, a fast-growing dental marketing agency making waves nationwide. With a business degree from Northern Arizona University and years of experience in luxury hospitality, she took her expertise in branding, operations, and customer experience and brought it to the world of dentistry. Having grown up around dentistry, Victoria understands both the business and patient sides of running a practice. Her passion for creativity and community-driven marketing has helped countless dental offices stand out, grow, and thrive. Under her leadership, Bitemark Media has become the go-to resource for cutting-edge social media, branding, SEO, and marketing strategies, helping dentists not just gain new patients, but keep them for life. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Victoria Porter. Victoria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Honored.
I'm excited to be here, and Victoria, and I know her as Tori, but Victoria and I actually were introduced only a couple of weeks ago, and after we spoke, I said, you know what, I want to have you on my podcast because I think you bring some really different things to the dental industry, and I like to get those people out there and help them get a name for themselves in the industry. Yeah. So as I ask every guest on here, can you kind of just discuss and tell the viewing and listening audience how you help dental practices?
Of course. So I started up Bitemark Media to help dental practices obviously get their name out there. But I think that a big part of what a lot of social media companies do right now is SEO, Google Ads, et cetera, et cetera. And so what kind of sets Bitemark Media apart is I'm such a people person. I come from hospitality, just like you stated before. And for a little while, I thought that might be my weakness. Like, it didn't give me as much of an edge. I come from a different industry, but it actually sets me apart in the best way possible. Because with Bitemark, what I can offer to clients is that hospitable approach, right? Bringing hospitality back to dentistry or introducing it to some dental offices who just have no idea what that should or can look like. So what Bitemark offers, we do grand opening events. I've got 2 going on right now. I do a lot of community marketing, so I've got a health fair coming up with Discount Tire. One of my clients will be at that. A lot of events, a lot of different strategies that make a difference. They leave a mark. That's kind of my tagline, right? Bitemark Media, marketing that leaves a mark. We're stepping outside the box here. And for me, it doesn't feel like we're stepping outside the box. It feels like we're doing what the industry should have always done or what they should have always stuck to, which is taking care of the patient and taking care of the team and just overall taking care of the people and let the brand voice lead from there.
I like how you use that word, the brand voice. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. So let's start off with some of the questions I wanted to ask you. So why do you feel that patient retention is so important to marketing companies? Because, a lot of dentists are focused on new patient generation and really ignore the patient retention side. And honestly, I'm glad to hear that you bring up patient retention, because most dentists only know their new patient numbers. They have absolutely no clue how their back door is, where patients are actually leaving the practice every month and their practice is actually contracting, not growing, even though they're getting a ton of new patients in there. So I love the fact that you want to talk about patient retention first. And so why is that so important to marketing companies?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is that the last thing I want to do is feel like I'm running on a hamster wheel. I do not, if I'm going to be putting a ton of my work and effort into getting your practice off the ground, I need to know that we're meeting each other. This is like an ebb and flowing relationship. And a lot of times I meet clients or potential clients and they're ready to hand everything off, right? They're ready to just be like, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to put in the work. I'm paying you to just make this happen for me. And I wish that it works that way, but it doesn't. It takes two to tango, right? So with patient retention, one of the things that I ask when I'm kind of like screening or vetting my potential clients is, of course, what are your new patient numbers? But what does that look like? Like, how much are we seeing in quality of that patient? Do you have just a ton of new patients and they're coming in for something simple and then you never see them again? Why aren't we seeing them again if they do have treatment plans? So I'm looking at quality over quantity, and I'll get more into that in a second. But if I'm bringing all these leads into the door and then nothing is happening to them, my job doesn't mean anything. What I do does not mean anything. And so that's where the doctor's side of things comes in. And I know on the last episode you had the amazing Dr. Nash, and I'm a huge fan of her, and she aligns 100% with what I preach. And it's all about the culture, the leadership, the phone etiquette, your social proof, yes, but the case acceptance and the patient retention. And so if the office can get the lead that I've gotten in the door for them, see them, and then actually pursue and fulfill the treatment and build a relationship with that patient, that's what's making the difference at the end of the day. And I'm going to leave room for you to ask me another question here, but I could talk about this for hours. But I think that where it means the most for general media companies, no matter what their outlook is, whether it's the same as mine or not, is analytically, if the patient retention is there, if I can tell that the new patients are going in and we can see what treatment's working, and overall just like what is working, then we know what to focus on. And we know that our job is not being done for no reason. I'll leave it at that.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, like I said, we're so focused on new patient numbers, but unless you're like an emergency practice where you're seeing the patient one time and you're not seeing them again, which is the issue when you actually use emergency dentists as like one of your keywords, those patients don't do comprehensive dentistry a lot of times. And if you can actually convert those patients, they're actually really valuable to you because then they stay and do more dentistry. So yes, you want to make sure the patients are not only staying, they're coming in, they're accepting treatment, and then they're coming back for more after that. That's how you have huge ROI on these patients who are coming into the practice.
And within my first month with new clients, sometimes the new clients are like, my new patient numbers have dropped, like, I don't know what's going on, what are you doing on your end? You know, there's that kind of like freak out moment. And then I say, but what does your production look like? And we look at these new patients and these moments, this time that I've spent with their front desk, their front office, the people that are answering the phones, that are talking with the patients, and all of that training and effort that's been put behind that. And then looking at the patients, yeah, there might be less, but the quality is there and the production is higher. And so they're not running around on their own hamster wheel. They're actually seeing more progress, right, in the other numbers, even though the new patient numbers look a little lower.
Got it. Got it. So let's talk about patient experience. And how does it directly reflect an office's brand voice? So there's that term again, brand voice, which is not something we hear too often. So can you talk about patient experience, some examples of things that you have noticed that sets some practices apart. I took the patient experience to the next level in my practice, which is how I got on the track that I'm on now, which is very much patient experience in a practice. But can you talk about things you've seen in the industry that how patient experience directly affects the brand voice?
Yeah, of course. I think that if you know anything about just branding in general, a lot of doctors get excited when they start opening their practice. They want to talk about the color palette, they want to talk about the logo and the name and things like that. But when it comes to brand voice, that quite literally speaks volumes. It's called brand voice for a reason. So if you want your brand voice to exude comfortability, if you want it to exude a welcomeness, an elegance, an intelligence behind it, then you're not going to have a patient walk into your doors and experience a cold staff or an unkempt environment, a cold environment, a dirty environment, right? You are going to make sure that you're representing the brand according to the voice that you want it to scream for you. And so a lot of my focus with my offices really just starts there. I want to make sure in the first month that we're setting it up, I call it my setup month. And it's the setup month because, of course, we're getting login information. We're getting a photo shoot done so that we have good quality photos to share online on social media, et cetera, et cetera. But really, I'm also just training the staff and trying to help teach the staff to prepare for the new leads that come in the door. I want them to actually understand how important their role is in the office. And if it's not coming in the door, then it's on the phone. It's that introductory. It's the way that they are presenting themselves.
Got it. Do you have some specific examples of, I guess, exceptional patient experience that you've witnessed in your dealings with some of the practices that you're working with? Anything that stands out?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's different aspects to that. There's going to be exceptional experience regarding the way that they've just set up their office. I've actually had a client a long time ago, this one, and their focus was on being spa-like. They refer to themselves not just as a smile spa, but they call themselves Smile Science. Spa, I believe, is what it was, and they really represented that voice and that brand that they came up with super well. You walked into the office and it felt like you were walking in to get spa treatment. It felt like, from the details of the kinds of chairs that they invested in to the service that they actually had their dental assistants add, the little touches. I mean, they were offering warmed up washcloths, just like you would in a spa, to their patients when they're ending their appointment and they have gunk around their mouths or whatever. That might look like blood, right, et cetera, et cetera. It can get messy in there. And so they made sure to offer those little perks. And that was the biggest, because I walked into that office and with that client, not having set that expectation yet, not having that conversation yet, and the fact that their mind was already there spoke volumes. And the fact that we could team up together and we're already aligned on this concept is what set them over the top so quickly.
Makes a lot of sense to me, and I love hearing that. I used to give hot towels to patients because it was like a spa-like atmosphere. So I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. So I think there is a lot of necessary things that dental practices do. One of the things is nourishing the relationship outside of the office, where, when the patients aren't in the practice, we're so focused on those that are there that we kind of ignore the ones that are long-term patients of ours until they come back for their 3, 4, 6 month recare. So what are some things that practices can do to continue to nourish the relationship even when those patients are not in the physical office?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually touch on that. I just spoke recently at a luncheon type of situation for a few offices, and I referenced keeping in touch. So when I say you're building strong relationships, yes, I'm saying the phone etiquette. Yes, I'm saying the experience in the door, but exactly what you're touching on now, it's the actual relationship. You're keeping in touch. I mean, we don't have great relationships outside of the professional aspect with friends and family if you don't ever talk to them, if you're not keeping in touch, if you're not sending them random reels here and there just to poke fun with them, or text messages, right? And so something that I really touched on here, I'm going to go through a couple of my points, is not just communicating effectively, but following up after treatments to check on the patient. And that can be, yes, there's technology out there that does that. And I think on a wide streamed aspect, that makes sense. And this is gonna irk a couple of clients, a couple of doctors, but it does help if the doctor reaches out. I push Google reviews, and that's something that you and I have had some good conversation about. But if your doctor, let's say that the patient didn't have the best experience. I literally just read a Google review actually from a long time ago. I was just scanning through one of my clients' reviews, and it said, I was going to give 3 stars, but I gave 4 because the doctor called to check in on me and see how I was doing. And that spoke volumes. That was their quote, end quote. That's what made the difference. And that might be 1 star, but it makes a huge difference when it comes to that review and the impression that it makes on the algorithm and the impression that it makes on the rest of the potential clients that are coming in and looking and checking and seeing what, right? They're vetting you, what you have to offer before they actually make the move.
I'm a huge fan of the aftercare calls. I used to do it all the time, and then you get busy. There is technology, like you said. I am a huge fan of Dental Intel's Engage product, and one of the things Engage has is what's called voicemail drops. And then you basically record your voice, you select the patient, and it calls the patient, it drops the voicemail into their voicemail, and shows a missed call, so they think you called them, but it's actually the computer calling them, and you're recording your voice and leaving a message basically asking, just following up to see how you're feeling. That works well as well, but I love the fact that someone's going and actually calling them. I think that makes a big difference. And I have seen many reviews that indicate that, can you believe the doctor called me afterwards to check on me? I'm not used to that. That sets you apart from many people in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know we all have lives, and I am the first to promote work-life balance. But I also know that there's a lot of things I made excuses for in my own life where I'm like, oh, I just don't have time to do it, right? We say that about everything. We say that about the gym. We say that about a ton of different things. But at the end of the day, usually we do if we actually make the effort to put aside a time instead of scrolling or breaking these other habits that we might have.
You know, it's funny you talk about making time. So I started walking in November. And I walk every day now, close to 3.5 miles a day, and I've lost over 35 pounds in the time that I've done that. And the point is that I thought I didn't have time to do it, and now it's literally an hour a day, and I find the time within my day to be able to do that. So there is time to do a lot of things that we don't do.
Yeah.
And I was the worst person at that. You know, now I make sure that during my day I get things done that need to get done. I'm not a procrastinator. There's plenty of time in the day. You just have to, for the things that would separate me from other dentists, I did those things. I made time to do those things. I think it's really important for people to find the time to do things to bring more new patients into the practice. Mm-hmm. There is a method to my madness, as I like to say. So. Yeah. When it comes to touching, as you called it, the touch points that we're making, the dentists are making, what is the right amount? What's too many times? What's not enough? You know, like, how do you find the happy balance with everything that's going on?
Yeah. I'm sure that there's a perfect measurement point, and I can obviously give good examples. But what I'm going to relate it to is a little bit of intuitiveness, because I'm gonna use the example of restaurants. Food and beverage operations is what I managed specifically when I was working in hospitality, right? So we're gonna bring up that background. When I was working in hospitality, I was working for luxury properties with Marriott. So a lot of times that's the Phoenician, if anyone's familiar with that here in Arizona. That is the Westin St. Francis in San Francisco's Union Square area. And when it comes to luxury properties, you're working with AAA, you're working with 5-star, 5 diamonds, right? You're working with like Forbes audited properties. And so there is literally a list of things that you have to make sure that you're doing. And on that list falls table touching. And it can be the server, but it's also the manager. And so regardless of whoever is coming in, table touching is what we called it. You don't want to overtouch and you don't want to undertouch. Overtouching would be me coming to the table 5 times during the meal, if not more, and being just interrupting conversation flow, interrupting the experience, giving this like feeling of overbearingness, basically, right? You don't want to annoy the client, the customer, the guest. You also don't want to leave them alone so long, undertouch them to where they run out of water in their glass, to where they're looking for you because they're ready to get out of there and now they're going to be late to their next meeting, event, whatever, because they need the check and they can't go. So the balance is the in-between, making sure that they feel heard, they feel seen, that they feel comfortable, but also, and that they're acknowledged and appreciated, but also that they have the freedom and room to enjoy the experience. And so that carries into the office actually as well, but we're talking outside of the office. So I think reminders, I appreciate them, me having a busy schedule. Reminders of their appointments is a good one. Check-ins, like we just said, by the doctor for after a treatment, especially big treatment, maybe not necessarily a cleaning, but big treatment where you know that they may be in some pain and wanting to call and ask questions. There's going to be patients that do take the initiative to call and say, hey, I'm still experiencing pain. Is this normal? And explain their symptoms. And then there's going to be people like me that may not be as comfortable doing that in other industries, right? I don't feel comfortable reaching out to my doctor necessarily and feeling like I'm bugging them, right? Feeling like I'm too much. So give them that attention. And this actually branches a little bit more outside of it. There's a concept of building this loyalty program. And this is more along the lines for patients that deserve the praise and really should be in the spotlight for coming all of the time, showing up to their appointments, coming in on time, making sure they're staying on top of their treatment, this loyalty program of perks. And maybe that looks like e-blasts. Maybe that looks like social media shout outs. Maybe that looks like giveaway baskets where they get to we discussed this as well, where they get to win different things, but actually being interactive with your patients in different ways. Thinking outside the box.
Got it. No, I think that's great. So let's talk about the loyalty program, as I know some practices do. Can you talk about like the cost to implement that, what that involves? I think that's a really great way to create loyalty because patients don't have a lot of loyalty in dentistry. If something changes, they're going to leave and go somewhere else where they can use their insurance or whatever. So creating this loyalty, we can call it a membership plan because I think membership plans are similar too. And the patients are going to be loyal to the practice while they have this membership plan in place. So can you talk about some of the costs to implement something like this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go over my little list here, but then I want to dive specifically into one. So I have encouraged satisfied patients to leave online reviews. That's not much of a loyalty, but it's a good way to capture those Google reviews, especially because those are the patients, right, that we want to hear from. Ask patients for feedback on their experience and act on their suggestions. That's the key. Acting on their suggestions. You don't even have to be necessarily in the loyalty program for that to make a big difference, but actually hearing somebody and then acting on it in any relationship will set you apart. And then offering incentives. So here's where we get into this. Offering incentives for keeping up with routine cleanings and checkups. Whether that be discounts, little whitening kits when they come in. Let's say they come in for their cleaning, for their routine cleaning or checkup. And at the end of their appointment, you say, Miss Susie, you have been an amazing patient. You have been on time. You've been consistent. We appreciate you so much. We just wanted to give you this free whitening kit or whatever gift that is. And if I'm Miss Susie, I'm like, I wasn't even expecting that. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even realize I was on time. This is just me being me. They appreciate it. They feel seen. And honestly, those are the patients that are going to now go tell their friends and family and refer people in the door. So that's a big piece of it. Now, as far as the patient that is there specifically for the membership or the discount and ready to leave for the next best membership or discount, there's obviously a little bit of a different way to go about that, and that falls in line with the touching, right? The table touching, just the communication, making sure that they know that they're seen, that they're heard, not just the discount that comes in line, but there's fun stuff going on in the office too. So that's like I was talking about, the giveaways and things like that, reaching out to them in those regards. I'm actually curious, have you ever used this method as far as keeping a patient that was ready to jump out the door and wasn't really super excited about the discount aspect?
Sometimes. I mean, I was never a huge discounter of services because I think that brings coupons into the factor, and that doesn't create a great patient experience. And what I mean by that is, I don't want to create that discount in the patient's mind that every time they need something, they're going to get a discount for doing it. So you just have to be careful how you implement these things. And I did have a membership plan, and part of the membership plan, I was gladly giving them the discounts. But again, that proves loyalty to me. But I don't want to make it all about the discount and all about the price, because that's not what it's about. It's about the patient experience. It's about the materials that we're using. There's a reason why patients want to come into a certain type of practice, and I think that's really what sets it apart. So I would just urge people to use caution when they're fully focused on the discount, like you were talking about there.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm actually glad that you mentioned this, because I have a client who is in a very nice side of town, and the last thing that we advertise is affordable dentistry, because we are not looking to necessarily advertise to a demographic that's looking for affordability. We're looking for, a demographic that is here and ready to get kind of bigger treatments. So I think that, yes, depending on your office and the brand and the insurances, if you take HMO or not, things like that, whoever you're looking to help, that makes a big difference on this approach. The similar office I was referencing before, the spa-like office, I created a digital print for them, kind of like a menu, actually, if you will. And the menu gave two different, like a gold or a platinum option, and one gave a specific set of offerings, and the other gave another set of offerings. And one of the offerings actually even included a massage. So they were partnered up with a massage therapy, kind of like salon business partner, and so they could offer that in their membership plan. And it just, again, is that extra little piece that sets you apart. What other dentist is going to offer that, right?
Got it. I understand completely. So Tori, is there anything Victoria, sorry, is there anything that we haven't gone over that you wanted to discuss in the podcast?
I think that I just want to put this out there. It's not just the experience. And actually, Dr. Nash in the last episode mentioned this. It's about believing it. And I'm glad that these two episodes kind of line up with each other, because I think this is so prominent in the worlds that we're in right now, is bringing back this authenticity. There's one piece of it, knowing, understanding, educating yourself on these methods, strategies, approaches, but actually believing in it and knowing it works is the other key ingredient to making the recipe work. And to believe it, you kind of have to become it. And so something that I believe you use is the vocabulary of practice ambassador, director of first impressions, patient advocate, right? These things, that is how you become this. That is how you believe this. This is how you build the culture, because now your receptionist, or this very basic term of a team member that you have, actually feels important. They actually know their role and what their goal is, what their purpose is, when they have that extra little umph and meaning behind them.
Oh, that's great. So, Victoria, I did it again. I want to shift gears now in the time we have, and I want to get to the lightning round Q&A, and I want to get through this fairly quickly. So, when we discuss, when I ask you these questions, I want them to be very specific and quick answers to these questions. I want to get through 8 or 10 of them in just a few minutes here. Okay.
Let's do it.
So I use a program called Poddex for those that haven't listened to this before. I'm going to bring up business related questions and we're going to go through them. So first question is, who have you looked to for advice or mentorship?
This is going to seem so basic, but Tony Robbins. And I don't know if you want an explanation, but boom, that's it.
No, that's fine. No, that's all good. So, what have you learned from the most successful person you know?
I have learned, it's a group of successful people, but I have learned that I need to sometimes take a step back, and this is carried into everything I do. I'm a very passionate, outspoken person. I can talk for days. And so actually taking a step back and listening and then implementing, that's been one of the biggest key components to what I bring to the table in all of my relationships.
How do you capture and keep track of ideas? Do you keep a notebook? Do you do voice memos? How do you do it?
I've tried it all. I'm a simple person, though. Notebooks are the way to go for me.
Great. What profession do you think is the most undervalued today?
Ooh. Most undervalued profession. If I'm going to be biased, I have to say dentistry. I really have to say dentistry, because the mouth is the first access. It's the door to the whole body. And people, I really don't think, realize that. And even to the point where dentists don't. I think that they're totally burnt out, that they've lost that. So.
Got it. What 3 adjectives describe your strengths?
Creative, resilient, and adaptable.
Okay. When you were a kid, what was the first thing you wanted to be when you grew up?
A veterinarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
Connecting people back to their purpose and to their dream.
Great answer. Do you have a favorite business podcast?
This one right here.
Brown Noser.
Brown Noser for sure. It's also my first podcast I've spoken on, so I'm very excited and, like I said, honored.
I appreciate that. So, what is one thing you have given up on that you wish you'd never had?
One thing I've given up on that I wish I never have, probably music. If we're gonna get deep into that, I've always wanted to pursue music in many different ways, singing, etc. So.
Okay. Do you have a hard time telling people no?
I used to. We'll say no.
Okay. If you had a magic stick, what are 3 things you would change in the world right now?
Oof. Oh, man. I think the biggest thing is peace, spreading peace. I just got back from a culture con, so that's also just a big one. Can I cheat? Can peace be all 3?
Sure.
There we go.
We'll make it easy. It's a hard question. So
it is a hard question.
Who would you love to collaborate with, and what would you love to collaborate on?
Ooh. My dream goal is to collaborate with Sophia Bush. She's a huge advocate, used to be a big actress. I would love to work with her on anything that is humanitarian or, she stands for a lot of great stuff. So anything in that aspect.
All right, 2 questions left. What book should you go back and reread as it has made a great impact on you the first time?
Something that I reread constantly is this book right here. A friend gave it to me. It's by Russ. He's a musician. It's called Get Out of Your Way. It's all in your head, little logo there. And this thing, I have a little bit of ADHD, so it's a great short read. It's easy to jump around, but it's meaningful. I highly recommend it.
Okay, and last question. What is one subscription, either business or personal, that you cannot live without?
Canva, 100%.
Design software, 100%. I figured you were going to say that. So.
Yep.
Yep. So, Victoria, how can people find out more about your company? What's the best way to contact you? And did you want to throw an offer out there to those listening so they get an incentive to reach out to you?
Yeah, of course. So again, Tori Porter, Victoria Porter, whatever you guys want to call me, honestly. But you can easily find me on Instagram at tortor.524. You can also find Bitemark on there as well. But if you want to reach me at my website, www.bitemarkmedia.com, you can find me there. And today's offer is actually for any potential new clients. A consultation is always free. So you guys can find that link at the website, bitemarkmedia.com. And my offer to you guys is if you come on as a new patient from this podcast, you get $1,000 off your first month as a new client. So pretty big deal.
Perfect. $1,000 off as a new client. Just mention Raving Patients podcast to Victoria, and she'll know that obviously you heard about it through this podcast. Victoria, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, expertises in the industry. Yeah. I really appreciate you being part of the episode. If you like what you heard, you can reach out to Victoria. She gave you her contact information. She gave you her company name. So feel free to reach out and let her know you heard about her through the podcast. Remember, thank the sponsors, both Dental Intelligence and the doc sites. About my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. Use the code RAVING to save $100 on registration. And ultimately, I want to make sure that you are subscribing to the episode. So subscribe to the podcast, like it, review us. Just do everything you can to promote these episodes. We have about 1,200 downloads a month. We're looking to get more. So I appreciate you listening or viewing each of the episodes that we come out with. And as I end every single one of my episodes, remember, your reputation matters. Victoria, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.